Ethan moved to Portland in the middle of October. Not because he wanted to live in Portland specifically. He'd looked at a map, picked something in the middle of the price range, and signed a lease before he could talk himself out of it. That's the version he told people, his sister, his old coworker Dave, anyone who asked why Portland, why now? He'd been in Chicago for 11 years. He knew every crack in the sidewalk outside his building. He knew which elevator in his office took 40 seconds longer than the others. He knew the sound the radiator made at 2 a.m. when the building settled. And he'd stopped noticing it years before he realized he'd stopped noticing it. That's what he told his therapist before he left, that he'd become invisible to himself. She'd nodded and written something down. He never asked what. The apartment in Portland was smaller than the photo suggested. 3rd floor, 1 bedroom. A window that looked out onto a fire escape and, beyond that, a parking structure. He didn't mind. He bought a coffee maker before he bought a lamp. He ate takeout on the floor the first 3 nights because the couch hadn't arrived yet. He slept well. That surprised him. In Chicago, he'd averaged maybe 5 hours. Here he was getting 7, sometimes 8. He told Dave this over text, and Dave sent back a thumbs up emoji, and that was the end of that conversation. He started walking in the mornings. No destination. Just the streets around his neighborhood, the Vietnamese grocery on Burnside, the laundromat with the hand-painted sign, the park where a man in an orange jacket fed pigeons every day at the same time. Ethan started calibrating his walks around the pigeons without noticing he was doing it. The first voicemail came on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after he moved in. He almost didn't listen to it. He'd been expecting a call from his landlord about a parking sticker, and the number on the screen was his own. He assumed he'd pocket-dialed himself, which he'd done before, once, when he'd had his phone in the back pocket of stiff jeans. He almost deleted it.
Hey, yeah, I know. Ignore the number. This is going to sound strange, but I wanted to say the coffee maker you bought is the wrong kind. The brown, it works fine, but you wanted the one with the thermal carafe. You're going to keep thinking about it every morning. It's a small thing, just return it if you still can.
Ethan stood in his kitchen for a moment. The brown sat on the counter next to the sink. He played it again. The voice was his. Same cadence. Same way he dropped the ends of sentences slightly. A habit he'd never managed to shake. He looked at the number. His own. He called it back. It rang 4 times and went to his own voicemail. His own greeting. He stood there long enough that his coffee went cold. He returned the coffee maker that weekend. He bought the thermal carafe version. He didn't think about the message again for 9 days. The second message came on a Thursday evening.
The woman you talked to today at the grocery. Her name is Maya. She's going to come back into your life. Not in a strange way, just so she will. You were short with her when she asked which aisle the oat milk was in. You told her you didn't work there. That was a little cold. I don't know why I'm telling you this part.
Ethan sat with this one for a long time. He had been at the grocery that day. There had been a woman. She'd asked about the oat milk. He thought he'd said he didn't know, not that he didn't work there. He was almost certain. But the way the voice said it, that particular flatness, the slight exhale before, I don't know why I'm telling you this part, that was him. That was the specific noise he made when he was editing himself mid-sentence. He didn't sleep well that night. In the morning, he told himself it was stress. The move. He'd been averaging a lot of change and not enough social contact, and the brain did things when it was understimulated and overstressed. He'd read something about that once. He made coffee. He stood at the window and watched the parking structure. He did not call anyone about the messages. He wasn't sure how to describe them without sounding like something had gone wrong with him. He ran into Maya on a Saturday. She was at the same coffee shop he'd started going to on Saturdays, sitting alone at a table near the door with a book face down on the table and a look on her face like she'd been interrupted mid-thought. He recognized her immediately, the oat milk woman.
I owe you an apology. Last week at the grocery, you asked me a question and I think I was rude.
Oh, the oat milk. Yeah, I actually wasn't offended.
Still,
Consider it accepted.
They talked for 40 minutes. She was a data analyst. She'd moved to Portland 2 years ago from Atlanta. She said Portland was the kind of city that felt like it was always mid-conversation with itself, and Ethan said that was a strange thing to love about her place, and she said she'd never said she loved it. He laughed. A real one. Walking home, he thought about the message. She's going to come back into your life. It had been accurate in a way that felt less like prediction and more like memory. That night he went back and listened to both messages again. The third message came 2 weeks later. By then, he and Maya had gotten coffee twice more, and he'd told her, in the careful way he told things, that he'd been going through a strange period. Not a crisis, just a strange period. She'd said she understood. She didn't ask for specifics.
I think you're starting to feel like yourself again. That's good. That's genuinely good. I want to say something and I need you to not think too hard about it. You had a conversation with Maya tonight where she asked about Chicago and you said it ended badly. You didn't explain what that meant. She didn't push. But you know what you meant, and I know what you meant, and I think you should be honest with her before she starts to fill in the blank herself. Also, you left the stove on again. Left front burner. Low flame. Just go check.
He was in his bedroom. He got up. He walked to the kitchen. The left front burner was on, a low, almost invisible blue ring. He stood there for a long time before he turned it off. He called his therapist in Chicago the next morning.
It's more common than people think. Are you experiencing gaps?
I don't know. Maybe small things, nothing serious.
Are you sleeping?
Better than before, actually.
That's good.
Yeah. It's probably nothing.
He and Maya had dinner in early December. He told her about Chicago, the actual version, not the one he usually gave. His girlfriend at the time, her name was Claire. He'd been with her for 3 years, and at some point in the 3rd year, he'd become someone she didn't recognize. And he'd been so far inside it that he hadn't noticed until she said, very quietly one night, that she felt like she was living with a stranger who looked exactly like Ethan. He'd moved out 2 weeks later. 8 months after that, Portland.
What happened to her?
She's fine. We don't talk. That's better for both of us, I think.
Do you actually think that?
I think it's what I've decided to think.
She didn't say anything to that. She looked at him in the way she had leveled, without judgment, and he had the unsettling sensation of being seen clearly by someone who hadn't known him long enough to have any reason to see him clearly. The 4th message came that night. He was still awake when it came in. Phone vibrates to 1:17 a.m.
You told her about Claire tonight. You probably feel better. You usually feel better after you tell people the version where you're just sad and a little lost, and you didn't mean to hurt anyone. That's not a lie, but it's not everything. You know what you did. Not the big thing. The small things, the slow ones. The way you left a room when she tried to talk to you. The way you stopped saying her name. You made her feel like she was disappearing, and then you left before she could leave you. I'm not. This isn't an accusation. I'm just saying you know this. You've known it. You just don't like knowing it? Portland's good though. It's actually good. I think you're going to be okay here.
He sat with the phone in his hand for a long time. Then he did something he hadn't done before. He pulled up his call log and looked, really looked, at the outgoing calls. The ones he'd made in his sleep, or in a fugue, or during the minutes he couldn't fully account for. The ones going out from his number to his number. There were none. The calls appeared only as incoming. His own number, calling him. No corresponding outgoing record. No evidence on his end that the calls had ever been placed. He checked his voicemail storage. The messages were there. He played the most recent one again. His voice. His particular exhale. The way he said "I'm just saying" with a slight upward note at the end. He put the phone down on the bed. He thought about Claire, about the specific texture of what he'd done to her. Not one thing, but 100 small absences. He hadn't thought about it clearly in months. He'd thought around it, the way you drive around a neighborhood without going to the street you mean to go to. He lay back and looked at the ceiling. The thing about the messages, the thing that had been sitting just below his thinking this whole time, the thing he had not quite let himself look at, was not that he didn't recognize the voice. It was that he recognized everything about it. Not just the cadence, the pauses, the specific guilt, the way it knew what to say and still couldn't quite say it directly, the way it was trying still to be kind to him, even when it was telling him something true. That was not a stranger. That was not a glitch. That was someone who knew him the way only one person could. He didn't get another message after that. He waited. Days, then weeks. Nothing. He told Maya about the messages eventually. Not everything. She asked if he'd talked to anyone about it. He said he'd thought about it. She said that wasn't the same thing. He said he knew. The stove wasn't left on again. He started saying people's names when he talked to them. He called his sister. He started, slowly, learning the names of streets. Portland got cold and then got wet and then got cold again. He thought sometimes about the messages, what they were, what he was willing to believe. He had a handful of explanations that each fit some of the facts, and none of them fit all of them. He chose not to choose. The last thing he thought about before he fell asleep on a night in January, when the rain was loud against the parking structure and the apartment was warm, was something the voice had said in the very first message. It works fine, but you wanted the one with the thermal carafe. Not, you should have gotten. Not, you should want. You wanted. Past tense. As if it already knew which version of him would be listening.